Hi everyone, my name is Sean Burt, and the name of my presentation is Angular 2 is here, and it is not scary. We should be embracing it with open arms. It looks a lot different from Angular 1.x, but that's okay. We'll get through it together. At least we'll get started on our journey. So the objectives of today's presentation is that by the end of it, you should be able to list several of the advantages that Angular 2 has over Angular 1.x. You should be able to recognize the Angular 2 component pattern, which I'll show you in a demo. You should be able to access some additional resources to learn more about Angular 2, and you should also feel less anxious about the whole idea of transitioning. So what are some of the advantages that Angular 2 has over Angular 1.x? The main one is speed. Google estimated at one point that Angular 2 would work 3 to 5 times faster than Angular 1.x. It was designed so that it would integrate better with mobile app strategies like Ionic. Angular 2 will do server-side rendering of the initial view, so when the user hits your page, that experience is faster for them. It should also have SEO benefits as well. It should support more complex animations better than Angular 1.x, and also testing should be easier as well. So let's take a look at a simple Angular 2 demo. Here it is here. It's got lots of bells and whistles. And here's the code that's actually running this. And although it's only 7 lines of code, we could definitely spend more than 10 minutes talking about it because there's a lot going on here. So let's do that. So components are like the building block of Angular 2. They control a view that the user sees on the HTML page. This is the view that this component here is loading up on our screen. Okay? So one thing to notice, and it's difficult to see, that when I'm working in here in Sublime, the name of the file is app.component.ts. So this is a TypeScript file. Angular 2 is written in TypeScript. TypeScript is a lot like JavaScript. It's basically ES6 JavaScript with some additional features and restrictions, and we'll touch on some of those as we go on. But if you know how to write JavaScript, you'll be fine in TypeScript. So let's just walk through this file from the top to the bottom, and we'll learn a little bit more about how these components are supposed to work. So like Angular 1, Angular 2 has a modular design, so we have to import what we need every time we're working in a TypeScript file for our Angular 2 app. The syntax that you use in Angular 2 looks like this. So we have an import keyword, the module we want inside brackets, and then we let Angular know where it should get that from. So component is what we're importing in here. And a component is, this component is a decorator function, is what it's called. This is it takes a metadata object, and the metadata object, that's what you see right here. So it's just a function that's being invoked with this metadata object passed into it. And what the metadata is doing is it's telling Angular how to create and use the component that is being defined right here. So this looks a little bit different. For example, the @ symbol here, the @ symbol is something that you get from TypeScript. It means an annotation. And the way all this works is it has to work together, basically. We're creating this object down here that's going to become our component. It's basically like a plain vanilla JavaScript object right now, unless we invoke this component decorator function immediately before it with the @ symbol. So if I put like a semicolon here, the app would break. These things need to run right into one another. Looking inside of the metadata that's being passed to the component decorator function, we've got a selector. This is just telling Angular, this maps to an HTML element that when Angular finds it, it'll know, okay, what should I render at this point in the view? So if I go over to the index.html, the only thing in the body is a myapp.html tag. So that's why Angular 2 knows to print that component right here. The template, this should look pretty similar. It's just telling Angular what to put on that spot in the document. And so this component object down here, this is how we can do some interpolation, some things that we've done in Angular 1 that we're comfortable with. So I could create a key value pair here. I'll just call this YouTube. And then if I come up here, I should be able to type in name, come back to the app. Let's see, make sure my server's running. It's not, that helps. Okay, come back to the app. All right, yep, so you see that it uploaded, or it updated so that it now shows YouTube as opposed to full stack. One thing that looks different here that you'll note is it's not just a simple key value pair. Its name is being set to a string that is equal to YouTube. This is a TypeScript thing where it requires you to define what the type of a variable is. So if I were to like replace this with number, I'd actually get an error in my linter that says type string is not assignable to type number. So that's one interesting wrinkle that you'll find working with TypeScript. So the file structure here, I'm working in app.component.ts. There's actually an app.component.js and an app.component.js.map. So the browser still needs JS to actually know what it's supposed to do. It can't interpret TypeScript automatically. So one of the things Angular 2 is doing in the background is it's actually transpiling my TypeScript code into JavaScript. So if I open up app.component.js, you'll see this big JavaScript file. It's not that big, actually. It's only 26 lines as opposed to 7. But it's basically wrapped highly performant JavaScript code around the TypeScript that I wrote in the other file. So you can see some of these TypeScript elements that are sort of nested inside of all of this JavaScript. It was able to plop that in for me here. And actually, if I were to delete these two files out of the pardon me, out of the folder here, if I run the server again, it'll just put them back for me automatically. So if I come back to, oh, you missed it. You missed it. They went away and they popped back, and it was magical. The other JS file here, the app.component.js.map, if I open it up, it just looks like a bunch of gibberish. But this is actually a really interesting workaround to a problem. When we are working in JavaScript, if an error comes up, the error that gets logged to us normally points to the line in the JavaScript code where the error was found. That's not as helpful for us here because we shouldn't actually be touching the JavaScript. So if it hit an error on a line in the JavaScript code, it'd be very difficult to figure out where in the TypeScript code the error actually originated from. So this map file actually does some magic behind the scenes so that when the error does get logged out, it actually tells you what line of the TypeScript code the error was found originates from as opposed to where in the JavaScript code. So if I write a sentence that will cause a syntax error, this sentence will cause a syntax error. Save, and then I run the server again. I will get these errors here, which say, OK, your error came from the TypeScript file in line 3, which is exactly where the error was. If we go into the JavaScript file, we'll see where the sentence was kind of plopped into the file by Angular 2. But if you imagine a larger file, this information would be helpful for us if it said you need to go in and fix your JS line 12, because you should never be going into your JS line 12, at least not at the level of Angular 2 that I've looked at thus far. Cool. So a couple of additional resources you can check out to learn more. This is obviously a really I just went deep on this one little part of it because the components are the building block of Angular 2. There's so much more to look at. And there's actually a lot of great resources available. The Angular 2 team is like a champion of the work that they've done, and they've done a great job of putting material out to entice developers to start working with Angular 2. There's an amazing 5-minute Angular 2 demo, so if you just want to play around with a lot of the same, like a file that looked pretty similar to what I was playing around with, just click through this demo and take 5 minutes, and then you can say, yeah, I've used Angular 2. They also have a really amazing but much more involved demo that you can click through as well. Some files that talk about, or a document that talks about the differences between Angular 1x and Angular 2, which would be a great place to start if you are familiar with Angular 1x, which we all are. This one was a little scary, but I thought I'd put it up there because it could be very relevant to us moving forward. There's an article that's very detailed about if you have an app that was built in Angular 1x, how do you start moving it to Angular 2 if you want to take advantage of some of those benefits that Angular 2 is supposed to have. So click through that if you feel so inclined. If TypeScript looks odd to you and you want to learn more about it, there's an official tutorial or quick start for TypeScript you can check out. There's also a great article here on TypeScript annotations, that little @ symbol, because for me in preparing for this talk, that was the least intuitive and strangest looking thing that I encountered. And also there's a great Sublime package that you pretty much have to install in order to work with TypeScript in Sublime so that you don't get a bunch of weird syntax errors and stuff. So definitely check that out and install it if you plan on playing with any of this stuff. So by now, you should be able to list several of the advantages of Angular 2 over Angular 1x. You should be able to recognize that Angular 2 component pattern if you come across it. You have some additional resources where you can learn more about Angular 2, and now you should be feeling less anxious about what Angular 2 is all about. Thank you so much. Oh, questions? Yes.